so here we are over in section 1. You have to forgive my little bit of a cough. Here we are over in section 1, and in section 1 what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the foot position. You will see my hockey and my feet stood at the hockey. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through a couple of the ways that people do actually set up and the correct way of setting up. Let's see if we can block the doggies out a little bit. Next door I've got 3 pugs. They're absolutely fabulous, the little things. They are proper funny. Obviously not the best when you're trying to make a video, but there you go. Right, so first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that other people stand at the hockey, and I'm going to show you why I believe that they're not as good as the Dynamite Dave way. So here we go. Right, I'm going to alter the camera positions now so you can see a little bit better. Right, the problem that you have with this stance is you've got to fetch your arm across here, and it's bunching up on your muscles. And the problem that you've got there is, depending on what you're wearing, how much weight you put on and off, it makes a massive difference to where that hand is in front of you. So obviously if you're thinner, your chest is further in and this arm can move about easier. Whereas obviously if you're a big lad like me, if I set up like that, my arm is off over to one side of the board. So that is obviously not a very good way of throwing. Another way that some people throw is toe onto the hockey with like a T stance like this, and with the back foot up in the air. As you can see from this, it's not stable. It is probably one of, including this one, like this, is probably one of the worst ways that you can stand when you're throwing darts. And yes, I know that 90% of people do that, but just because 90% of people do it doesn't mean that it's right. What it means is it's the way that it's been done for years and years and years, but that doesn't mean that it's the best way, does it? That's why we went from horse and cart to cars, isn't it? Because somebody developed a car and said, well, this is a better way of getting around. What I'm saying to you is this is a better way of throwing darts. Whether you accept that or not is entirely up to yourself. And as I say in virtually every one of my videos, it's subjective. So it's entirely up to yourself and whether you take this in and whether you try it. But if you look in the comments on the videos, go and click on any one of my videos and look at the comments, the positive comments to the amount of negative ones. There's 400 odd videos out there, and I bet there's 300 of them without one bad comment on them. So it shows that what I'm telling you is the truth. People tried it like they do and give it a proper go. So basically do it for 3 or 4 weeks, give it a proper go, and you will see massive results. You won't see them if you do 3 or 4 visits to the board and just go, this is garbage, it don't work. That's no good to anybody, because it's, as I've mentioned before, it's like learning a new language. If somebody expected you to learn a new language in a matter of 10 or 15 minutes, and a lot of people don't even give the Dynamite Dave go that long. They go 3 or 4 visits and then go, it's garbage, it don't work. Obviously not. You can't learn a new language in 24 hours, and you can't learn to throw darts in a different, better way in 24 hours. It's as simple as that. So now what I'm going to do is I've shown you a couple of ways that I think is a bad way of standing, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go on to what I consider to be the correct way to stand. Right, so addressing the hockey, the way that I do it and the way that I show people is, what you want is, I'll start off like that, and I say that's how you want your feet, is square, level. And this is how you stand to do the Dynamite Dave way, is just like you stand when you're talking to somebody, you stood at the bar, or you're just generally standing round. You don't stand round and stand on one foot like that. And the reason why you stand like this as a normal way of standing is because it is the most stable way of standing. It's where you've got most control over your body. And what we do then is we turn it through 90 degrees and we stand like this at the hockey. So you stood at the hockey like this, and you're at 90 degrees to the hockey. Then what you do is you turn that foot in, line it up with the edge of the hockey. You've got a flat piece of your foot, which is, if you imagine that is my foot, obviously you don't have a finger a thumb sticking out, do you? So that you imagine that's your foot, right? That is your straight bit that goes to the back of your ankle. That is your little toe. And as you can see with your little toe, it comes off at a slight angle. That gives you a perfect way of lining that up, and what it does is it just takes the pressure off your knee. So instead of being stood like this and turning and putting more pressure on your hips and more pressure on your knee, all you do is turn that through a few degrees and you've got a little bit less pressure on your knee. Just make that joint last a lot longer, that's all. The back foot should be level with the front foot. Not over here, not over here, here. So dead in line with where you want the darts to go. So straight across your body. Well, the other thing you don't want is you don't want your foot like this, because this is not shoulder width apart. This is not shoulder width apart. Shoulder width apart is underneath your armpits. So basically your feet need to be under your pits, not under the outside edges of your shoulders and not right together. Reason for this is another technical bit which a lot of people don't realise until they actually have a go at it themselves. So have a go at yourself and see if what I'm telling you is true. Right, if you open your feet out to as wide as your shoulder, when you come to drop your throw down, it pulls your heel up off the floor. Again, making you unstable. And it's very difficult not to come down without fetching your heel up off the floor, as you can see there as I'm coming down. So when you come down with the Dynamite Dave way from 20s down to 19s, as you can see my heel comes up off the floor. What's the difference? Underneath my shoulders, treble 20, treble 19. No difference in my feet whatsoever. None. Whereas when you put them further out, and the further you widen your feet out, you can do it as an experiment if you want. The further you widen your feet out, the higher your back foot comes up off the floor. Because otherwise you can't get down to the 19s or the double 19 or the double 3. You can't get down to it without lifting your heel up off the floor. So that is why we have the feet underneath the armpits and not underneath the shoulders. Right, so let's go through it again. And don't forget, this is only the foot position. We start off and we just get it straight in our minds that our feet need to be level. Straight and level. Simple as that. Dead easy. Just stood up. Nice and neutral. We actually call this thorax neutral, which means that you just stood up taking your own weight, nice and upright, not leaning backwards, not leaning forwards, not leaning this way, not leaning that way. So we're not doing any of this. What we're doing is we're stood up just like we're at the bar, like I am now, just stood nice and naturally. And obviously the more natural and the easier you make this, the more consistent you're going to become, the more reliable your throw is going to be, and the easier it's going to be to repair when something goes wrong. Right, so we have a mark in the centre of the hocke there. I've got a nice big black arrow. Obviously for people who come and I'm coaching them, it gives them a datum. So again, we have the foot level. We're about half an inch or an inch back from the actual hocke itself. Then what we do is we turn our foot. And as we turn our foot, it goes into the ideal position as it touches the hocke. Don't forget, this is only while you get used to it. If you've got a raised hocke, it's even better. Because once you get used to getting your foot into this position, you can walk up, you don't even have to look at the hocke, you can keep concentrating on the board. You can tap your foot on it, like the pros do, bang your foot up to it, set yourself up. Magic, because you don't have to look down. But if you've got an hocke on the floor as a strip like this, and don't forget, if you're going to different places, then that hocke is going to be different. So you have to have a way of datuming yourself to get yourself in the right place. Because again, this is how the technical things go on from one thing to another. If you stand in different places, if I set myself up there, I'm aiming for the double 11, which is crazy. So that there, aim for the bullseye, and then treble 20 is just above the bull, treble 19 is below the bull, but there's very, very little body movement in your scoring positions. And then when you go to across the board, then it's all about another technical bit that we're going to speak about, but that'll be one video and that'll come along in a few days. And what that's going to be all about is how to move the Dynamite Dave throw around the board, because it's the key to being able to hit all the targets. It's all right getting your group in, hitting them bullseyes, hitting them treble 20s, but then you've got to know how to get to the double 15 to do those magic double finishes and make that finishing so simple for yourself. So that'll be the next video. Right, so lads and lasses, that was the foot position. Got that nice and straight, turn it in, feet underneath the armpits, not too far out because it forces you to lift your back foot up off the floor. Magic that you've got to be able to rock your hip in and what have you to get the Dynamite Dave throw to different parts of the board. Once you've mastered that, then you go on to the body position and the mechanical throw. Right, so that's section 1. So let's get out of section 1. Let's go into section 2. Section 2 was serving hand, wasn't it? Right, so that was section 1, and now what we're going to do without further ado is get into section 2. Section 2 is the serving hand, another thing that is massively under thought about, and it just makes a big difference to the way that you throw. Right, so let's get over into section 2. Let's get over there right now. So you first start in, and your second dart at your first dart's wide, and then your third dart in your first dart's wide. And there you go. Right, so here we are over in section 2. Section 2, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the serving hand. So for you, this will be your serving hand. For me, this is my serving hand. But the great thing is with having a left-handed coach and a right-handed chucker is you can stand opposite each other and everything looks like you're just looking in a mirror. So it does really work quite well. Right, so what I'll do now is I'll get a set of darts and we'll make a start. Right, so the serving hand. This is one of the most vital parts of your game. It really is. To get a good, consistent, solid, accurate throw, you need to not be worrying about what your serving hand's doing. You need that serving hand to be putting those darts into your hand the right way every time they come in. Right, so Uncle Dave's got a bit of a tub. Right, so what we do is it's dead simple. Don't matter if your belly's flat, your hand sits here. Simple as that. And all it does is your darts, whenever they come, let's mix them all up like that, right? So they're all at different lengths. Dead simple. What we do is we just tap them on the hip and look how straight they are. Simple as that. Nice gentle tap on the hip just to get those darts central and get them in your hand correctly. The correct way to do it is you've got your hand like this. If I fetch it round, this is the way that your hand, your actual fingers fall away. It feels a bit weird this because I'm doing it up in the air. But when it's down there, the fingers fall away and the hand comes in. It takes the dart. I'm using this thumb as a guide for this thumb. And as it comes in, my two fingers come in like that, and they take the dart out of my serving hand exactly, as you can see, the way that I throw them. So they come into the serving hand without having to do any adjustments whatsoever. The last thing you want to be doing is taking the dart out of your serving hand and fiddling about with it before you actually throw it. so here we are over in section 3. In section 3, what we're going to do now is have a look at the way that we actually look at each and every target on the board. Right, now then, when you normally set up, 99.9% of people, again, they look at the board, right? So you look at the board now and you're just looking at the board. So you think to yourself, right, I want double six, and you just look at double six, but what you can see is everything all around you, all your peripheral vision, everything. You can see everything that's going on around you, and you're just generally looking at the double six. Well, that's not what you want to be doing. What you want to be doing is looking at a little mark within the double six. So we've got one somewhere in the centre, best if you can find one there. We've got a little dark mark there. Now what I would do is when I throw at the board, that is what I aim for, that little dark mark, and it pulls me focus in. So what I do is I stare at the target, so I try and focus as closely in on the target as possible. Obviously if you're talking the treble 20, we've got a nice line up the middle of there, so that's what I would throw for, is that line. And it's the same principle as throwing your first dart in and throwing your second dart at your first dart's flight. What that does is, all that does is it changes your focus. It changes your focus from the dartboard to the end of the flight. That's the way that it works. It changes your focus from one thing to another. And what it does is it takes the rest of the dartboard out, so you're not thinking about the rest of the board and everything else that's going on around you. You've actually tightened your focus down to one point, and that's what you need to be able to do, is tighten your focus down to one point. Really stare at that and try and put your darts into wherever you're looking at. So there, that'll be the white mark. We can go along anywhere in any of the sections and you can find something. Right, treble 8 there, we've got an hole there that I can see. I don't know whether you can see that from there or not, but I don't know how good the camera is. But again, if you look at the bullseye, there's a black mark in the centre of the bullseye, just off the centre of the bullseye there. That's what I would aim for. And that is the difference between looking at the whole board and throwing generally at the treble 20, or actually throwing at the treble 20, because that's all there is. And that's the difference between how you actually focus on the board. And so that was a little bit of a close-up type one onto the board there to give you an idea of the difference between generally focusing at the board and actually focusing at the board. Takes a bit of getting used to. Again, it's very difficult to zone things out that are going on around you. And that's the way, when I get 180s, that's what happens to me. I throw my first dart in and it hits the 60. Not a lot happens. I throw my second dart, it goes in and everything goes quiet. All the room and everything goes quiet. What I do is what they call zone in. So I zone in, hopefully, to get that third dart into the treble 20. And I've got to say, quite a lot of the time, it does actually go. I get quite a lot of 180s when I want to. Now at the moment I'm doing 171s a lot more than I am 180s, because I'm one of these, once I can do 180s, they don't mean anything anymore. That's why I love big finishes, especially combos like the one I did against Phil Brown, which you'll no doubt have seen.
Yeah, game shot.
Nice shot.
Cheers.
Which was the 154 in the first leg. It's just one of them. The big finishes to me are worth 10 times a 180. I'd rather do one decent finish than 10 180s any day of the week, because they're more important. Don't forget, as I've said before, Bobby George, doubles for dough, trebles for show, and there's never a true word spoken. And obviously, if you can take a ton plus finish out, you can come down a little bit behind someone. You think about it, right? You can have somebody who can hit 2 180s in every leg. If they can't finish, then it doesn't matter how many 180s you hit. What matters is how you finish the game. The only way, and I've said this 1,000 times, the only way you can win a leg, the only way you can win a match, the only way you can win a tournament, the only way you can win any money, the only way you win is by hitting those doubles. It's as simple as that. Right, so that was our third and final little thing, which was a look at the focus on the board. This video's probably gone on for long enough for you guys, so thanks very much for watching. I really enjoy making these videos for you. They're not coming as thick and fast as they used to, but unfortunately with the health things that are going, a little bit more of an update on the next video of how we've progressed. Some things have come a little bit further on. We're a little bit closer to that operation now, and I'll give you the lowdown on it in the next video. So again, thanks very much for watching. Don't forget, lads and lasses, as I've said before, as I will always say, you will only ever get out of this game what you're prepared to put in. And always, 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 toe to the hockey!